Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Paul Spheric Reptiles again, and I thank you for watching this video on hypopigmentation versus desert ghost. And I know I said hypopigmentation because we commonly use words, if someone starts using it in the past, that doesn't mean that it's right, but that might be why we call it just hypo instead of hypopigmentation, because hypopigmentation is a longer word than hypo, so whatever, So instead of calling it hypomelanistic is what an albino is. So that's an animal that is void of the melanin pigment. So that means that the eyes, skin, and hair are different color. And the albino snakes that we have should actually be called hypomelanistic. Hypopigmentation means that there's a reduction in the melanin, but it's still there, and it still kind of mimics, it's just a lighter form of what you would normally see. So that is a true definition of what a hypo is, but I'm not getting into that. This video is about the differences in just an average person. Of course, the more you look at snakes, the more you can identify, but for the average person to be able to identify the difference between a hypo and a desert ghost. And so, of course, I'm going to show you snakes, but I want to give you a little bit of history about each one before I actually go into it and show it to you, so you can kind of look for things that can help trigger like the visual recognition of what you're seeing. So the hypo gene was discovered a while ago by a nerd in about 1994. And what it is it's a snake that looks like it's in constant shed. So the difference in that and your normal snake is that it won't have the pink underbelly. So it'll just look like a clear snake. It looks like someone took a dryer sheet and they just kind of laid it over the top. I know it's kind of like a gray shading. So that's the one thing that you have. And so let's get right to it. Let me show you one. So in the first example that we have, this is Michael Jackson, you can see how along the body, this is the hypopigmented. So it still has some of the normal color of your ball python. Of course, it's a pastel. But if you look at the head, you can see that it's really gray shaded all the way over. And you can notice that the entire snake's body looks as if it's in shed. But let me show you how on the underside, it's not pink. So, and Michael Jackson just does not like this light. But you can also see how he's not in shed from the eyes, but that is the color of a hypo. And one of the other things I want to point out is along the dorsal, what you'll do is you'll see a fade in the pattern. And so as this snake gets older, this coloration will actually be maintained. So you won't end up with a snake that changes a lot. It'll get dark, as all ball pythons do. But the main thing is that it'll still hold some of this natural color because it's not as vibrant to begin with. It'll get a little bit duller, but more importantly, it'll have this same, like I said, that dryer sheet appearance that looks like it's over the top of it. And so that's what you're looking for when you have a hypo. Let me throw this in as a extra. So the hypo is not a true ghost. So in order to get a true ghost, which I'll put a picture of one right here, is an exantic plus hypo. So that would get rid of all of the color and just make a black and white snake. If you had a VPI, TSK, exantic, or any other type of exantic, but those are the two most common ones, plus a hypo, then you would get a true ghost. All right, so the desert ghost gene, which is really cool now that you've seen the hypo, and hopefully you were impressed with that. Of course, that's Michael Jackson, he's always shy, but hopefully I got enough of the images of him moving on the table so that you could actually see what a hypo is. But in the desert ghost, it was discovered by Reptile Industries around 2003, so it's still a relatively new snake gene, about 20 years old, and we're still learning more stuff about it. Thanks to Ben Morrow, Dr. Ben Morrow with RGI, that's Rare Genetics Incorporated. He did find that there are two different locations for the desert ghost gene. There's a desert ghost A gene, and then there's a desert ghost B gene. And so for your animal to show desert ghost, it has to be homozygous. So it's because it's a recessive mutation. You gotta have two copies, one from the mom, one from the dad. You can have a DGA, a DGB, or you can be homozygous for DGA and B, which you get in that snake. You probably get the best example of a desert ghost, because now you're getting everything that the gene has to offer. So, you know, we know this in incomplete dominant things, so yellow belly versus ivory, and then you could have a super orange dream versus orange dream. So that same thing probably plays true for desert ghosts, where if you're homozygous for A and B, then you end up with a super desert ghost. Well, there isn't a super desert ghost. It just probably looks a lot more like a desert ghost. One of the key things about a desert ghost, before I show you one, is that let me see if I can explain this right. It has very sharp lines, but it looks a little bit like out of contrast, so to speak. So the blacks are very black, and there's a strong, distinct line in the snake when you see a hatchling. But as that snake grows, what you see is that the alien heads, which are probably going to be either yellow or black in the beginning, would turn a grayer color, and they'll have yellowish hues. So what I'm going to do now is just show you one so that you can see, and then I'll put the Hypo and the desert ghost right next to each other so that you can make a better determination as to how you can tell the difference. Both examples are pastel, so that should help you. It's kind of hard when you see one that's pastel and one that's not. So let me get right to that. All right, guys, so this is Prince, and you can see that this is a desert ghost. Now, we haven't had him genetic tested yet, so we don't know if he's homozygous DGA or homozygous DGB or both. But what we do know is that he's a pastel, yellow belly desert ghost. And let me get him to come back into the frame. And what I want you guys to pay attention to is the fact that you can see along the body, if I can get him to cooperate, you can see along the body how it looks duller, but you can see the sharp contrasting lines. It's very pronounced when you go from this side to that side. And when you look at the dorsal, you can see that the blacks are, even though they're faded, they're still really vibrant. And that's one of the main differences that I look for in a desert ghost, is that it's vibrant in the coloration of it. Now, as it gets older, you can see right here along, let me pick him up. If you can see right here, all of these alien heads will get a lot grayer, and they'll have a slight yellow hue to them. So that's one of the main things that I've noticed in desert ghosts. And after we get them genetic tested, then of course I'll have the results for that. We're still waiting on them to shed so we can have that and we can send it to Dr. Ben Morrow. But this is incredible, guys. Like, if we look at these type of snakes, and just to imagine where they came from with the albino that was introduced to us in the I guess, you know, to everybody in the mid-90s to now, you can actually see what some of the major things that are happening with these animals. So let me put them side by side so that you can actually get a good look of both of them. So if I put them side by side, you really can see what the differences in a desert ghost and a Hypo are. So this is the Hypo, and you can see how the colors still stand out, but you can see that it has that faded appearance. And then over here, if we look at the desert ghost, you can see how much more vibrant the colors are, and they're kind of dulled down a little bit, but this is the difference, guys. So I think it's easy to see when you see them side by side what they are. Now, of course, as they get older, both of these snakes will grow to look different. And of course, there are desert ghost Hypos, and I'll put one of those in just right above this picture right here so that you can see that as well. But let me grab Prince. Prince don't never want to act right. And then Michael Jackson is always shy. Isn't that crazy, guys? All right, guys. So now that you've seen my two little boys, you know, Michael Jackson and Prince, one of the key things that I want you guys to always do is try to recognize what you're looking at. Because I think the more that you recognize what you're looking at, the more enjoyment that you'll get out of this hobby. Of course, every reptile show you go to, there's a ton of ball pythons. So instead of seeing them as just all the same snake, which they really fucking are all the same snake, but you know, what I want you guys to do is really look deep and try to recognize the pattern morphs, whether they're incomplete dominant, and then if there's a super form to that, and then the recessives, and try to identify how those recessive and incomplete dominant forms stack. And that'll help you to better pick out a snake that you would really like. But, you know, hey, I really still love what I do with these snakes. Now, of course, we all have our day job, but for now, my hobby is just so incredible, and just looking at the genetics of all these things. Hey guys, if nothing else, please hit that like and subscribe button, comment about what you think about this video, and remember guys, enjoy your time with your family and enjoy your time with your reptiles.